In this next module, I'm going to be building a basic job board application from start to finish. So over the next few videos, you'll be able to follow along as I tackle all of the common functionality we might find on a job board type of app like this, or a marketplace type of system where you have two sides of an interaction or of a relationship. In our case, we're going to have company users and applicant users connecting with each other in one way. In this video, we're going to start with user registration, and just keep in mind that all the pages that I'm going to be creating throughout this sample job board build are going to be with Bubble's newest responsive engine enabled, and you'll be able to find those pages in the page drop-down list of our demo app here under the new responsive folder. So this is a filter for you so you can find those pages specifically. So I've created an alternate index page. This is where I'm going to kick things off. This is where I'm going to set up my user registration. Now, when you create a sign-up form or a login form for your users, it doesn't have to live on your index page. You can have separate pages for those things. It really just depends on what you want the experience to be for your users, and also, how many steps are involved for the onboarding experience. If it's a multi-step process where they need to provide more information, you might want to consider having separate pages for all those things. Of course, you can build all those individual steps within one page. We're going to get a sample of that here in this video, but where this lives is really up to you. So I'm going to place this on what would be my index page of my application. Now, the first thing that I start out with is looking at the structure of the page itself and just kind of wireframing how my elements are going to be laid out before I really focus on any functionality. So I'm going to open up the property editor of my page, go over to layout, and I'm going to change the layout style to one of my responsive layouts here, and I'm going to select column. Column tends to be my fallback method because it's going to be the most often used, just because when someone is looking at a web page, they're generally scrolling up and down to consume the content. Now, of course, there are scenarios where it makes more sense to set up a page as a row or even align to parent, but column is going to be your safest bet if you're not really sure where to start. The next thing I'm going to do is change the background color of my page just slightly. I'm going to set this to a flat color and do a little bit of a gray, kind of a light gray here, just so that any groups that I add onto this page can really stand out a little bit more. We can create some background, foreground kind of separation that creates very visual, clear visual hierarchies of your page's sections, can help draw the user's eye to the right places, and you start to create separation and clear sections, just by using colors that are offset from each other. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add my first container to this page. I'm going to add a very large group that is going to act as my primary container. Now, I like to do this for all of my pages within this new responsive engine because it gives me a starting point for setting up how wide the content will be able to be on my page versus how narrow, what kind of spacing I want on either side. Of course, I can do this kind of group by group on the page. I don't have to have this kind of parent container there, but I found that it makes things really easy for me to keep any other elements on the page more consistently following the same kind of spacing guidelines I want to create, again, so that I have even spacing on either side. Basically, I have my general, margin settings set up at this group level. And then inside of this group, I can, of course, modify anything independently from there. So this group, I'm going to call this group main container. And I'm actually going to make this one transparent. I don't really need the user to see it. I just need this for the purposes of defining margins on the page. So I'm going to center this horizontally within the column of my page. I'm also going to make this inner container set to a column as well. Let me recenter that horizontal alignment. Looks like Bubble moved that back for me. If that ever happens to you, just make sure you check on those. And I don't need this group to fit its height to content. I just want it to expand to the full height of the page. Anything that I put inside of it can, of course, be fit to content so that we don't have, extra space or more space than we really need. Now here with this width, this is where I can really control the margins, from the stuff that's inside to the outer edges of my page. Let's say I want to give this group a minimum of 320 pixels. That will allow me to make this page fully responsive down to a mobile size. So this group will shrink down to 320, and it has to be at least 320. So anything smaller than that, which is going to be very rare, you're rarely going to find any devices that are smaller than that. Things will start to get cut off, right? So this is the minimum width that I want. Now the maximum, I'm going to say, let's say 1,000 pixels. Because this now will, let me actually, hold on, I'm seeing my page is not being affected here. Let me go to the page level real quick. I'm going to change the preset of my page to a full width, which is 1200 pixels. All right, so you see it's a little bit wider now, but my inner group is maxing out to 1000. This is so that if a user wants to engage with this page on a very large, high resolution, like a 4K screen, things aren't getting so stretched out that it now becomes cumbersome to look at everything. So we're going to max things out at 1000 pixels. That way, on a standard, computer, desktop device that typically will have, 1200 pixels for the windows, we can still see everything. We have a little bit of breathing room on either side. Okay, so that's my main container setup. Now I can start to put everything inside of this main container and not have to worry about, how much things are going to stretch or how things are going to shrink, because this main container will dictate a lot of that for us automatically. So I'm going to add my first text to inside of that main container. I'll open up my elements tree here so we can see the hierarchy of everything. All right, so this text we're going to say, welcome to the job board. This, and I'm going to change the style to one of my headings. Let's do, heading 2, nice and big, make the user, let the user know what the title is for this page. And I'm going to go to the layout settings for this text to customize this as well. I want to make this centered, and I don't need this text to be fixed width, but I do want it to fit to the content of the text, and I don't need it to have a minimum. I just want the width to fit right around the content. So if I added more text from here, if I said hello like that, it will still expand to fit that content. And I'm also going to get rid of the minimum height so that it fits perfectly around the height of that text. Next thing I'm going to create is my first form. So remember, I'm going to set up my user registration on this page. So signing up users as well as logging in users. But let's start with our sign up. So I'm going to add another group here. And this group is going to be centered as well. I'm going to call this group sign up. And this is also going to be a container group. Bubble likes to do that. If you switch your layouts, your horizontal alignment might change on you. So just make sure you check on that. And the dimensions of this group, I'm going to have this, let's say for now, let's have this maxing out at 600 pixels. So I want it to be much more narrow than the main container, but still plenty of breathing room. Actually, I think that's maybe a bit too wide. Let's say 400 pixels. I think that's good, because all we're going to have in here is a vertical stacking form of inputs to collect the email address, the password, and have a button to sign up. And my minimum will also set this to 320. We'll adjust the height in a moment once I have more content inside. So I can already see that these elements are, right next to each other. I want a little bit more spacing here. So at the main container level, I'm going to add some gap spacing of, let's say, 20 pixels, maybe a little bit more, about 40 pixels. And I also want to push down the top of this so that it's not right at the top edge of my page. Now I can do that a couple ways. I can either put a top margin on this text, or I can put some padding or even a margin on the main container. Let's do some padding here. Let's do top padding of maybe 50 pixels. So we begin everything much further down here. That way, if I ever need to, replace this text or swap things around, or maybe I introduce other icons or something, no matter what, everything is going to start down at this level because I've added this padding within the group. Okay, now inside of this, this group here, I'm going to add my content so that the user can sign up. So let's have a couple of labels. We want to collect an email address like this. Let's see if we can get some styling here. How about this? Actually, not that one. Let's create our own style for this one. I'm going to do a bold and yeah, I think actually that's all I really wanted. Bold 14 point. This default font is okay with me. And we can create a new style here. I'm going to call this a form label bold, just so that I can use this for other text. And we're going to copy, actually, let me change the layout style of this text as well so that it's also fitting perfectly around the width of the content as well as the height of the content. So getting rid of those minimums there and making sure that these checkboxes are checked. So I'm going to copy this now. I'm just using my keyboard, Control-C and Control-V to create a couple more labels. So I'll want to collect the password as well as the confirmation password. So they can type that in twice, make sure we don't have any typos. confirmation password. All right, now I'm going to add some inputs. You'll see how, notice how I'm not addressing the spacing and all of that until after I have all of my elements in here. It allows me to do all of my formatting first, and then I can clean things up with the spacing. So this input is going to be for the email address. So notice that I moved it around in the column order by just clicking on these buttons here. So this is going to be an email address, and I'll relabel my input so that I know what it is when I'm working with it in the workflows. And I'm just going to remove the placeholder simply because I have this label already outside. Now I'm going to copy this input and paste. This is going to be the next input below the password label, and we'll call this password. This is also going to be a format password, and I'm going to copy that one, basically have the same settings for the confirmation. I'm just going to change the name so that I can keep them apart. Confirm password, just like that. Okay, and let's give these a little bit more space now, so I can go to the container group sign up and add some spacing here. Let's try 20 pixels. That's a little bit too close, and you know what I want to do is I actually want the labels closer to the inputs but have more spacing between that pairing. So what I'm going to do now is take the email address and multi-select, holding down my shift key, select this input here, right click, and group those two things together in a column group like that. Okay, so now we have inner elements, a series of column groups, okay, doing the same thing here, where I can control the spacing. So inside of my group sign up, we have 20 pixel of gap spacing between those groups. Let me make sure that these heights are fitting to height. This one is also fitting to height here as well. Right, we don't want any extra spacing. So there's 20 pixels between these two. You see that right there? I'm going to exaggerate it just a little bit more. Maybe we do 30 pixels. And I want a little bit less spacing between the label and the input. So if I go to the group itself, I can add its own gap spacing, maybe 10 pixels there. So we have a bit more control over each of these items' positions, you know, relative to each other, just like that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center these groups. Right? I don't really want them fully left aligned. And inside of the group here, I'm also going to add some more padding. Let's do 20 pixels in the top. We're going to do 20 pixels on the bottom as well, so that I make sure I have that space, that breathing room, away from the very bottom edge and whatever the last element is, which we are missing a button. So I'm going to do a button here. This button is going to be sign up. This will trigger our workflow. So I'm going to center this as well. And I'm going to actually set this to a fixed height of, let's say, 40 pixels, maybe a little bit bigger. How about like that? And what are these group width settings? It looks like these are fitting to content, which are fitting to the fixed inputs. Those widths are set to 315. So I'll just match that on the buttons here. We'll set this to 315. That way everything is nicely aligned there. All right, so now we have our group here for signing up the user. I'm going to preview the page so that we can see what this looks like. And the cool thing about this is that it's fully responsive already. So all I had to do was make sure that my settings were consistent, but now this form is fully responsive for all breakpoints. And if I go to the responsive view, I can verify that by going to my different settings here. Now, I am seeing some things kind of happening that I might want to adjust. So first of all, this white group, remember, this was set to a minimum of 320 and a maximum of 400. It is right at 320, you know, because I'm on the 320 device size. I may or may not like that. You know, maybe I want to have a little bit of more margin around it to have some breathing room, or at least allow these groups to shrink down more as well. So if I wanted to fix this, I would probably set this group to have some margin. Maybe we do like a 20 pixel margin on the left and a 20 pixel margin on the right. Let's see here. No, it's actually kind of offsetting each other. Let's try a minimum width of 300. So what I'm going to do to account for this is I'm going to lower the fixed width setting, or actually I'm going to remove the fixed width setting of the inputs and just give them a minimum of maybe 300 here so that we can allow them to shrink down. And I'm going to add some padding to this group. So this input here, remove the fixed width setting. Let's change this to 300. Same thing for this input, 300, and this one as well. I'm going to do the same thing on the button. Here, not fixed to 315, but minimum of 300. And now for this group, I'll add some padding so that we can allow those to get, shrunken in a bit more. Okay, 20 pixels might be a little bit too much. Let's try 10. To resolve this, what I'm going to do is actually make these groups and inputs a little bit more responsive. So if I take the group and remove the minimum width and just allow the group to fully fit around its inner content, and then take the input inside and remove the fixed width setting here and maybe give it a lower minimum width, let's maybe say 300, you can see how now it's allowing the group is allowed to shrink down to a smaller width, and that gives me a little bit more breathing room to play around with. So I'm going to do the same thing for the password group. We'll remove the minimum width, and then the input, I'll remove the fixed width setting and set this to, I think I said 300. We'll do the same thing here. Remove the minimum width, and the inner input, we'll set the minimum to 300, and we'll set the minimum of my group, or of my button to 300 as well. Let's see, this one's actually expanding to the full width because there's nothing else that's stopping it. It's not inside of a container. Let's see, what can we do with this button? We could fit it to its content, which is really just the text itself. And of course I do have a minimum of 300. If I remove that, it'll make it very, very small. So how about we just leave it to the minimum of 300 with the fit width to content setting enabled, and then we have a very aligned mobile view like that. The text element will likely want to change the font size, so that is something that you can control in the conditions. So I can say when the current page width is, let's say, less than 800, so somewhere, around that large smartphone size, not quite yet to a tablet size, but once we're getting more narrow, let's bring down the font size a bit. So I'm going to change the font size from what was the original? Let's see, let's go to the heading 2 style. It was 31 originally. Let's go back to our responsive setting here, and let's maybe knock it down to, let's say, 24. See how that feels like that. That's a lot more comfortable for the mobile view. Okay, so now when we toggle between our different screen sizes, let me close this here, you see how those things will change and adapt to that so that it feels much more natural on those different breakpoints. Okay, of course we can really fine tune those, but I wanted to take a moment to walk you through those different settings and how you can really have granular control over the different behaviors on different breakpoints. So now we're just going to focus a bit more on just general layouts and the workflows, of course, for user registration. So when the user clicks on sign up, we're going to create a user account for this user. So I'm going to start and edit a workflow from this button, and I'm going to run the sign the user up action. The email is going to pull from the email address input. We want to take the value there. Password is going to come from the password input, so we'll take the password's value. I do want to require a confirmation, so I'll go to the confirmation password's value. And now we've signed up the user. They have a user account, very easy, in the database. The next step from here is going to be to ask the user if they are a company or if they are an applicant, they're a candidate, somebody who's looking for a job. So we're going to create our next group to take them through the next step of the onboarding process, right? So before I can do any workflows to move them from one group to another, I actually have to design that group. So I'm going to copy this group here because a lot of the settings are going to apply in terms of the alignment and the padding and all of that. So I'll copy that and paste this. You'll see that it's inside of my main container, this group sign up copy. I'm going to call this group user type. We're going to ask the user what kind of user type they are. Okay, now for now I'm going to hide the sign up group, and let's actually let's turn on this collapse when hidden setting. Okay, when it's hidden, when we don't see that and we want to see the next group, we want to remove all of this white space and have this bottom group come up. Okay, so now that this top group has collapse when hidden and I turn this off, you see that my second group down here, user type, is now the only thing that I see, and it's taken its place. I am going to eventually want to hide this group as well, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that on here. And by default, I don't want to see my user type group. By default, when I load the page, I want to see the sign up group. I always want the user to start there. And so by default, the user type group should be hidden, which is why I turned this setting off here. Now, let's continue with what we want to ask the user in this group here. I'm going to have a text. Let me copy this heading and paste this inside. Like this, and this text is going to say, what are you looking for? Like this. And let's change the style to maybe heading 4, doesn't need to be as big. And the buttons inside will say, my password, automatic password tool is filling in there. All right, so I want to say, here are my 2 options. I'm looking for a job, like this, or I'm going to copy that button. I'm looking to hire, or maybe I want to hire, or I want to post a job, like that. Okay, so if they want to post a job, that means they're a company or an employer, somebody that needs to find applicants for this position, versus I'm looking for a job means that they are the applicants. Now, this group doesn't need as much space to have all of this content. We can make this a lot shorter. So this group, I'm going to change the layout's height settings so that it does fit to content. And again, if I wanted a little bit more breathing room there, I could increase the padding, the bottom padding of this group, maybe to 50, right? So there's a little bit more space. Okay, so now we have 2 distinct groups. We have our sign up group right there, and then we have our user type group. So after the sign up happens in the workflow, we're going to hide that group, the sign up group, okay? And then we're going to show, I'm just typing these in to find these actions quickly, but you can also get to them by following the menus, element actions, show the user type group, like that. That way they can answer the question, okay? And from here, we'll take them to different places as well. So if they're looking for a job, we can go ahead and just send them inside the application. They can go to their dashboard or they can begin searching. So we'll cover that in the next videos. But if they want to post a job, that means we need to create a company for them. That's a separate data type that is in our data structure, right? Everybody's going to have a user record, but not every user is going to be a company. And if they are a company, we need to create that related company record. Okay, and you'll see here that under the user data type, we have a type field to identify what type of user they are. Are they an applicant or are they a company, or are they a system admin? You know, you as the builder of the application can create an account for yourself to have global control over everything. Now, before I move forward with the workflows for defining the type and creating the company, notice that this structure is using a text value. Bubble has, since made improvements to managing a list of choices in your application via option sets. Now, this is a great use case for an option set. So we're actually going to replace this field here, which is just using a plain text, with an option set. So I'm going to call this user type OS. I usually like to label my option sets with that OS there, just so I can keep them apart from my data types. And this option set for user type, the choices will be a company user or an applicant user. Okay, and if I wanted to introduce any other types, I can always come back here and modify those. Now back to the user type table, the user data type, I'm going to remove this field. I'm going to just put an X in front of it for now. I have other areas in the application that are still referencing this, but I'm going to replace this with a new field called type, and we'll put option set there just to make sure we can keep them apart, and it's going to reference my user type. So now every user can be one of these two choices that I created, the applicant or the company. All right, so moving on with our workflow, when the user clicks on I'm looking for a job, okay, we're going to start a workflow from that. We want to modify the user and save that selection to their user type field. I'm going to make a change to the current user now that they're signed up. The only thing I'm changing right now about the user is their type. So if they clicked on this specific button, I know that they are an applicant. And after this, I'm going to want to navigate them to another page. We don't have those pages created quite yet, so we'll come back in here and make those corrections. But eventually, I want to go to another page in my app so that they can start using the application now that they're signed up and we know that they're an applicant. Okay, so we'll come back and correct those. For the company, I'm going to start a workflow and also make a change to the user. All right, so you're seeing that I'm making a change to a thing. I'm going to data, make a change to a thing. The thing in question is the current user, and the type here is going to equal a company. Now that I know that they're a company, I have one more step for them to fill out, for these users particularly. I need them to fill out some information about the company. I want to know the company name, possibly location, description, any other details that matter for this job board. So before they are navigated to another page, we're actually going to show another group. So I'm going to copy this group here and start my next group. Actually, I'm going to copy the sign up group because this is more set up for a form to fill out. And I'm going to use the same thing. Now you notice how things are getting cut off there. Let's see if we can correct that so we can actually see all of our groups if I did want to have these all visible at the same time. Let me just first rename this one. This is going to be group company. Okay, so what's going on here? The main container has a minimum height of 498. We don't really need a minimum, but let's say the main container, I intentionally turned this off, but if we said fit to content, then it will expand. And you know, that does make sense for this. The main container only needs to be as tall as the content inside, so we'll leave it at that setting. That way we can see all of our groups if I do happen to have all three of them turned on like this. Now again, they're not actually going to be all three visible for the user at the same time, just for your editor, you'll be able to do that. Okay, so my company group, let's turn off the sign up just so I don't mix things up. My company group here is going to ask for a few details about the company. Let's say we want to know the name, company name, right? And so this input will be just a plain text so that they can type in the company name. Let's see what else we need to collect about the company. I'm just going to go back to my data structure. We have a logo. The manager we're going to assume is just the creator of the company. We don't have jobs yet. We can do a location and a website. So logo, location, and website. All right, so let's do here location. And this one is going to be let's actually change this input to a search box, because with search boxes, you can search addresses. Bubble has sort of a built-in integration with Google Places. That way we can search points of interest. It can pull up addresses for you, make sure they're formatted properly. So I'm going to take this input, I'm going to right-click it and replace it by another type. Since I do have, you know, an input there designed with the right settings, I just want to swap it out for a different type of input rather than having to redraw it and reset up all the layout settings. So here my search box is what I'm looking for. And this search box is going to be a geographic places style, right? So the search box can, it's basically a way for you to type in and it will auto-populate with any suggestions as you type. And your list of choices that come up as suggestions can come from a static list that you define here. You can literally type in the choices, or more commonly, you would use dynamic choices, pull things from your database, or going through Bubble's Google Places integration, and you can search geographic places. So I'm going to change the name of this input to a search box location. And our final thing, let's see, oh no, we had our website, right? And this is another plain text like that. And then one more box, let me add another box here, I just copied and pasted, is the logo for the company. And I'm going to swap this input out for a picture uploader. So again, we're going to do, where is my, here it is, replaced by another element, and we want to do a picture uploader. And this picture uploader, I'm going to change the dimensions just so that it's easier for the user to see. Let's do, let's see, 300 width. We don't want it to be 37 height, and it also doesn't need to be that wide. Maybe we do like a 100 by 100, right? So kind of instructing the user that this should be a square for the logo. Now, I can also position this particular element more to the left because it's not as wide as the others, or now that I think about it, I could make it keep it centered just like the others, and just ensure that the width of this group is, the minimum, the same minimum that the other ones have. I just want to make sure that the picture uploader itself, which is this input here, right? Let me change this to a picture uploader logo. I don't want this to expand wider than, let's say 150. Right? Or I could actually fix it to 100, which is what I wanted, right? Just a perfect square here. So it's still to the left, but centered with all of the other elements. And we have our perfect square picture uploader to let the user know, hey, you've got to upload a square. Now this sign up button is going to be, we'll say, continue for the user who is creating their company. And if we go back to the workflow, now that we have all of our inputs here, from the company's perspective, right, they selected I want to post a job, we save the company type, I'm going to hide the user type question, right, when we ask those two questions, and show the company group so that they can now fill out the details about their company. Okay, and that's where they land here. Now, when they click on continue, this is where we're going to create the company record. Okay, so under data, we can create a new record, new company record, and we know a few things about the company. We know the location, we know the logo, we know the manager that's going to be the current user, we know the name of the company, and we also know the website. We have values for all of those. Now you saw how I clicked each one of those one at a time. You can also shortcut that by clicking on add all fields, and Bubble will add them for you. We don't know list of jobs yet, so I'm just going to remove that one. So a couple ways for you to set your fields. So we're just going to map everything here. This location is coming from the search box locations value. The logo is coming from our picture uploader. The manager is going to be the current user. The name is coming from the company name's input value. And the website, I think I did not rename that. Let's go back to this input. Very important to label things as you go, because otherwise you can easily cross wires. So here we go. Now we have our input website's value, and now we've created the company. Now, if we remember from our data structure under the user data type, we have a relationship field here to associate a specific company with the user, just like we've associated a user with the company. So, two-way relationship. So I've created a company and I've saved the user to the company, but that does not mean that Bubble is going to automatically set the relationship on the other side for me. Bubble has no idea what I'm doing. That company field could be anything. So I'm going to make a change intentionally. I have to tell Bubble to do this. Make a change to the user and set the company under the user to the result of step 1, my brand new company record that I just created. Finally, from here, the user will be able to move on to the rest of the application. So here we can do a navigate action to go to their profile, their dashboard settings. If they need to be able to do a search, they can do that as well. So now we've handled all of, the flow actions for moving the users between these different screens. So I'm going to do a quick test here so you can see where we're at. And then we'll touch on login as well as, just switching between login versus sign up, as well as doing a password reset. So these are all the common things you need for your registration. Now it looks like my company group is visible on page load. I'm going to correct that here by going to this group and turning off this setting here so that it's not visible on page load. We'll refresh again. I should only see my sign up group. There we go. All right, so I'm going to sign up as a company at user.com. How about we do the opposite? Let's do manager at companyabc.com. And I'll do a password. So I'm signing up my user account. Okay, and so you see how now I'm taken to the next screen asking me what I'm looking for. Before I show you that, I'm just going to take you into the database real quick and go into the users. You see here's my user account that was just created, manager at companyabc.com. So now I'm going to say I want to post a job, and it's going to take me to this screen. So I can say company ABC, and I'm going to search for a location. Let's do location in New York, right? You see how this is auto-completing for me? And then I'll do a website, companyabc.com. And I don't have a logo that I can upload. Let's see if we can find one real quick here. I think I have some placeholder. Yeah, I've got some placeholder images. Let's do this kind of division symbol there. All right, so there's my picture and continue. And that should have created my company, but remember, I don't have an action yet that's going to redirect me anywhere. So that's why it looks like nothing happened. But let's check out our companies here. You can see, let's refresh. Let's go to this view maybe. There it is. This is probably a modified view where I might be filtering, or it looks like it's sorting on the name. So I'm going to go to the main view here so we can see the most recent company. We can see everything was saved. The name, the location, the logo, manager, and the website. And if I go back to my users, you can see that this user now has the associated company listed under their record. Okay, so we can see that all of the workflows are working properly. It's fantastic. You see how, just a quick side note, you see how in the tab here it says My Page? I can edit that by going to the property settings of the page itself and updating that here. So I can say, welcome to the job board. It's just the name of the page. If I wanted to change the name of the page overall, I'd have to edit that here. So that's actually going to affect, what shows up in your URL. Notice here that it says index_v2, but the name of the page, this is part of the metadata that would show up in, Google search results, things like that. And of course your tab, that's what will change that value right there. Okay, so let's do a couple of other kind of common user registration things that we would see here. Of course, we need a way to log the user in. So if we're by default showing them this sign up form, let's have a text for them. I'm just going to add another text at the bottom of this group to switch to a login group. So, oops, let me close that. I'm going to make this the last item, this new text here, and I'm going to set this text to already have an account. Click here to log in, like that. And let's make sure we center this. I might want to call it out a little bit more by, maybe underlining it. I could change the color of this text to blue, again, just to call it out a bit more, letting them know that this is an option. So when they click on this, I want to hide this sign up group and show the login group instead. Okay, now I don't have a login group yet, so I'm going to create one real quick. I'm going to take this group, copy, paste. Okay, this is my group login, and I need most of the same information, right? I need to know the email address. I'm going to relabel this so I can keep that email input apart from the login input apart from the sign up input. And the same thing here, password login. I don't need a confirmation password for logging in, just those two. And I'll change my button to say log in. Okay, so we can trigger a login function. And I'll change this text to say don't have an account. Click here to sign up. And this will swap them, right? They can toggle back and forth, right? So this text, don't have an account, will hide the login group and show the sign up group. group sign up. Let me complete the other workflow for this one. It's going to hide the sign up and show the login. You notice that I'm telling Bubble every single thing I want it to do, every single interaction. So I'm going to hide the sign up here for a moment and just show my login group. Click on this, and I just need to hook up this login workflow. So when they click on that login button, we're going to add this login action. We're going to map the email address value and the password value so that they can log in. Again, once they log in successfully, I can navigate them to some other page in the application. If they enter in the wrong password, Bubble's going to handle that for you. They'll see a little alert message that says, incorrect password, or maybe that user doesn't exist. If they typed in an email address that we don't have a user for, all those system messages you can control under settings and then under languages here. There's a number of different system messages that you can customize. Okay. Now, the final thing is to trigger a reset password type of functionality, and you'll normally find that within the login group. So let's add another text here. I'm going to copy this, paste, and move this up. Right, let's actually move it below the password, and we'll relabel this to say send password reset email. Or we can say, forgot password like this. And this can trigger, your system can work a few different ways. You could have it immediately send a password, or you can maybe show a pop-up that says, hey, enter in the email address and we'll send you a reset right now. That way you can really give them clear instructions so that they know what to expect. It's really up to you what your design and flow is going to be. Here's what I'll do for this, just so you can see what the workflow is going ultimately needs to be. I'm going to change this back to send a password reset email, and I'll change the color of this, and maybe we make the alignment. I guess we can keep it centered there. Okay, so when the user clicks on that text, and again, it can be in this text or it can be in a pop-up, we're going to trigger this action to, where is it? Send password reset email. So we do need to provide an email address, and I'm just going to take the same email that they would have typed in to the login form. Okay, so I'm kind of doubling up on that. Now you can customize the content here, but here's how this works. When this email is sent, Bubble will include a unique link in here for the user to click on. You don't see it here, but it will get added in. That link is going to take the user to the reset password page. Okay, this one right here. This is a built-in page in your application that you cannot change. This page is special because it contains a reset action that you can only use it on that page. You won't find that action anywhere else. So they'll click on the link, they'll be navigated to that page, and that's where they can change their password. They can type something in new, they'll do a confirmation, and the workflow has that reset action. And then from there, you can take them wherever you want. Take them back to this sign up login page, to their dashboard. They'll already be logged in. You can show another confirmation message, you can send an email, do whatever you want from there. But that's how this works. And what I would do after you send this action is showing an alert message to let the user know to go check their email, right? So we could add an alert element here to this group. All right, let's move this up above. Let's move this to the top. And I'm gonna not have a fixed width. We'll fit it to the full width of the container like that. And let's change the style to maybe success. Or how about an information alert? And we'll say, check your email for a reset link, like that, okay? So alert messages are hidden by default. You don't need to turn on or off any setting, but you have to show them with the workflow. So when we send that email, we will go to the element actions and show that alert message. And the nature of an alert is that it will fade in for a certain amount of time. This is in milliseconds, so this is half a second. It'll hold on the page for 2 seconds and then fade out. That way you give your user a visual indicator that something did happen and that they can take the next step from there. All right, so those are our standard user registration actions. As you can see, it doesn't take too much to put together a whole flow for signing up, logging in, setting up, even another record. We created a company, defining who our users are, setting up a password reset, and toggling between these two groups. I'll show you what that looks like here as we round out this video. And in our next videos, we'll work on setting up dashboards, creating content, managing content, being able to search, and so on. Looks like I also forgot to turn off the default on this login group. Let's uncheck that. That way we only see one group at a time, and you guys should be able to replicate this from here. So if I already have an account, switching over to the login, switching back to sign up, it's nice and clean, very all responsive as we went. Yeah, and we're on our way. All right, we'll see you in the next video.